Mesopotamian Artifacts, a comparative analysis of the Standard of Ur and the Warka Vase course, Global Cultures Remix, date 9/26/2024, introduction slide. In this presentation, I compared two major artifacts from ancient Mesopotamia, the Standard of Ur and the Warka Vase. Both works provide enormous insight into social classes, religious activity, and the relationship with nature in which Mesopotamian society was engaged. These two works have allowed a greater understanding of the cultural values and beliefs of that early civilization. Class division and hierarchical structure. The Standard of Ur is a rectangular box with three distinct registers on each of its sides, showing scenes of war and peace. It epitomizes class distinction, wherein the upper register represents the ruling class composed of the king and nobility, having showy and initial clothes and being much larger in size than the rest to reflect their importance. The middle register portrays the traders, artisans, and smaller soldiers, while the bottom register stands for the lower classes, such as laborers and prisoners. Combined, scale and placement in this kind of hierarchical scale can be said to express power and position in Mesopotamian society. The Warka Vase is a monumental, intricately carved vessel in alabaster with four registers showing a procession of offerings to the goddess Inanna. The upper register presents a religious ceremony with the figure of the goddess larger and centered. The bottom three registers are taken up by priests, worshippers, and representations of crops and animals. This develops the religious hierarchy of the civilization. The goddess and religious leaders maintained at the top. Both objects represent the hierarchical system in the order of society and religion. However, the Standard of Ur gives more focus on the differences in class and society, while the Warka Vase highlights the offerings and religious ceremonies to gods, and thus represents the religious practice and belief responsible for structuring the Mesopotamian entity of social organization. Representation of religious ideas. Although primarily an illustration of social structure, the Standard of Ur also depicts leaders who possessed both political and religious authority, and hence is indicative of governance mixed with divine authority. Needed motivation through an intermediary status of the ruler between the gods and the people. The Warka Vase is one example of evidence of religious beliefs that can be clearly depicted in a ritual process to a goddess named Inanna. It shows the act of offering crops, animals, and goods. This very fact that religious rituals were paramount shows that gods influenced each sphere of life, including agriculture and the economy. While both artifacts give evidence of the leading role of religion in Mesopotamian life, it is in the Warka Vase that religious worship is portrayed directly, whereas in the Standard of Ur, religion is implied indirectly through the depiction of leaders as intermediaries between gods and society. Relation to nature and resources, made up of the most precious materials that the Mesopotamians possessed, lapis lazuli, shell, and limestone. The Standard of Ur shows how wealthy they were and the enormous trading system that existed. The workmanship of this application of precious material highlights the importance of trade and resource acquisition within the society. On the lower registers of the Warka Vase are intricate carvings of plants, crops, and animals. These were symbolic of the Mesopotamians' deep reverence for agriculture. According to the Penn Museum, this imagery makes clear how their relationship with nature was closely tied to religious practice and economic well-being. The Standard of Ur points out materials as being indicative of wealth and trading links, whereas the Warka Vase expresses dependence on agriculture and nature for nourishment. Both pieces show that in Mesopotamian life, the use of nature and available natural resources was commonly applied, though they emphasize different aspects, trade for the Standard of Ur and agrarian practices for the Warka Vase. Conclusion. Both the Standard of Ur and the Warka Vase represent important insights into Mesopotamian culture. While the Standard of Ur focused on social class, kingship, and wealth, the Warka Vase demonstrated religious activities associated with agriculture. Together, they show that Mesopotamian society was a complex interplay of social structure, religion, and nature.